Okay, we ready to go? Okay, I'd like to call to order the 7 o'clock hearing for this evening, which is the Concord Budget Ordinance hearing. It was advertised in the Delaware County Daily Times, I think on Friday, October 30th. Amanda can provide to the court reporter upon request all the records of advertisement. I think historically, we have a book here with the budget in there, and I think, Amanda, at this point, I'd like to turn the microphone over to you. I also see we have our finance director with us tonight, Hank Deal, and our assistant township manager, Terry Grant. So they'll be able to help us or assist us in any questions that might come up that we might need more help on. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good to me. We will get started. Hopefully everybody, is my mic working? Can you hear me?
No.
Let me get the volume up. Okay, much better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so technology is working. We actually have some cool things for folks at home where normally you are looking in on our live stream and you see the meeting room. I now can connect anything on the presentation screen so it looks a lot better to you at home. So I'm going to switch that over now so the folks at home, you will be seeing the presentation screen as folks in the audience are viewing it. And I will do that right now. All righty. So 2021 preliminary budget. This is the ordinance hearing. So overview of the process. I always just like to bring this up so that folks understand how the process starts. Our township treasurer, assistant manager, myself, and other management team members, we start to evaluate the needs and objectives of the township in order to determine the feasibility of the township's capacity to allocate revenue sufficiently to meet the needs and objectives in any budget given year. So we have processes throughout the year that we look through and monitor our finances, whether it's the mid-year review, post-audit as part of this budget process. We begin that over the summer months as we evaluate everything from levels of service, capital planning, review projects from the previous year, things that need to be deferred. This year, unfortunately, we also had to look at the effects of COVID, which I have highlighted at other meetings and given an overview of where we see those effects, and we'll discuss that more as we go forward. And basically, we try our hardest to make sure that this budget document reflects the language that's in the charter to make sure that this is very easy to understand and openly reports exactly what the township's needs are for services to our residents. Some key aspects. I'm actually going to take my mask. Key aspects of the proposed budget. Due to the county reassessment that was court mandated, the budget proposes a tax millage rate reduction by 45% to 0.530 mils. I think everyone is very familiar with the reassessment that's been going on, and the idea is, especially in the first year, there has to remain tax neutrality. So with that, we are proposing a reduction in the millage rate by 45%. The proposal for the general fund budget, which for those that don't know, the general fund is our operating account. So this is where most of the daily activities are happening. That is reduced by about 1% from the 2020 budget and has a total of $4,343,805. The proposed capital plan, which is included as part of the also the 5-year capital plan, has $3.6 million in grant funding for projects. That's mainly due to the trail plan for Octorara and the roundabout plan off of Smithbridge Road, where a lot of those monies are coming, and just to point out where that 3.6 is mainly coming from. Also, the proposed sewer capital plan includes over $3 million in new infrastructure projects to older neighborhoods, which I know folks in those neighborhoods are quite thankful for those opportunities. Additionally, the Open Space Tax Reserve Fund includes over $2 million for open space anticipated purchases, whether fee simple or conservation easement. So real estate millage 2021, as I said, due to the reassessment, the millage rate has been reduced by 45%. If you look at the chart that's up there, it shows 2020's millage rate, the proposed millage rate. What I will note is that the county reassessment numbers that we have right now are from this summer. So they're in the middle of hearings, and we are understanding most recently that we may not receive those final numbers post the hearings until the end of November, early December. So we'll talk about that further as we move along. But based off of the current numbers that we have, this is what the proposed millage rate would be. Additionally, the fire hydrant portion, that was reduced even further this year, actually, but that was due not only to the reassessment, but also to the fact that we've had, over the last several years, new hydrants installed, so it picked up more accounts per our ordinance, so there'll be more people assessed that, so it's a smoothing out of those costs to pay for the hydrants. To get into governmental funds and fund balances, for all funds, the total proposed budget is $15,194,535. Additionally, I'll point out that we've added to this slide the year-end balances that are anticipated. What I do want to point out when you get to capital project funds and the capital reserve fund is that in that $8.1 million, about 90% of that is actually earmarked or committed by council for either land purchases, tied up in agreements, and things of that nature. And that fund generally receives monies via agreements or when council transfers money, budgeted transfers from one account over to that account. Additionally, we have some sinking funds and library fund, highway aid fund, which is liquid fuels, where we do all the road work out of, the tree fund. And open space has a tax reserve fund and also a fee in lieu fund, which is the fee in lieu fund is developer fees that go into that account. Top revenue sources. So I wanted to show this slide to portray where our revenue is coming from. So if you look at the bar graph, you'll see real estate taxes is generally stable, even with this year's reassessment and our reduction in millage rate. And Act 511 taxes, which are your LST taxes, your, I'm drawing a blank, real estate transfer tax, and amusement taxes. And that is more volatile, obviously. Some years we had unanticipated revenue where property sold twice. I believe that's what shows in the number that's there. That's pretty high in 2018. And additionally, you'll see sort of the lines are a little more not as linear as the other sources of revenue. Charges for service, that's all your building permits, any permit of any nature for construction. Additionally, I will point out that charges for service also have direct expenses associated with those for those employees and for those services. Business licenses and permits, that's contractors, haulers, and that also includes our cable franchise fee monies are in there as well. General fund proposed expenditures. As we talked about before, this is our operating account. These expenses include things for personnel, general administrative, tax collection, buildings and codes, public works, some road paving and maintenance, building maintenance, capital construction, professional services, snow removal, code enforcement, fire services, engineering, zoning, public safety, animal control, township-owned property maintenance, insurance, parks, and trails maintenance. And you can see sort of the larger portions of that are, general government, tax collection, and then also, insurance, pensions, payroll taxes, and any transfers that are budgeted. Now switching over to sewer. The Township Sewer Fund includes $8,350,667 in total proposed expenditures for 2021. That's broken out between their operating account and their and the capital funds. The Sewer fund is more, it's called a proprietary fund, enterprise fund, and that's held separately to account for business-like activities. Obviously, we have, it accounts for the goods and services for supplying the sewage for our customers. And the sewer department serves over 2,500 residential customers and over 190 commercial customers. The department additionally maintains 63 miles of sewer lines. We maintain a 1.8 million gallon per day plant. We have another small plant that's 0.0635 million gallons per day, 15 pump stations, and 6 privately owned pump stations. Capital planning, as we've talked about before, I think the 5-year capital plan, I think, is one great thing that actually came out of the charter in formalizing that process for us. Capital planning, I'll just note in the top line here, is integral to a healthy financial picture for the township. Maintaining high quality infrastructure is essential to the economic vitality and quality of life of our community. This 5-year capital plan reflects in total over $32 million in planned expenditures, which include funding for new sewer infrastructure, upgrades to existing sewer infrastructure, roadway improvements, stormwater management planning, technological and building upgrades, traffic signal and intersection improvements, historic preservation of township-owned buildings, the purchasing and maintaining of vehicles and heavy equipment, and trail design and construction. This one's a little more difficult to read, but if folks, you grabbed a packet when you came in, it's the last page of the packet is the 5-year capital plan. Now it's on 8.5 by 11, so I'm sure it's a little more difficult. This is also available on our website for folks. You can blow it up and get a look at it a little better. But this sort of accounts for all of the projects that are anything over $100,000. That's what we include in our 5-year capital plan. It includes our grant projects. It includes any capital equipment, municipal-owned building maintenance, any land conservation acquisition, which is noted and reflecting over $2.5 million in this year anticipated, our road program expenses, which is for paving, and sewer new infrastructure, which I have on another slide as well for notable projects. But as you can see, the township in 2021, between all of our funds, has over $8 million in projects planned, and the sewer department has over almost $4 million in 2021 in projects planned. To note some of the projects that are, more notable from the township end, park projects. We talked about master planning, trail enhancements, land conservation acquisition, our road program, obviously, township campus upgrades, Pierce Willits and AME. There's some historic preservation projects that are planned. And so on the grant-funded side, where we have over $3 million that we anticipate in reimbursements for those projects, we have the Smith Bridge Roundabout, which I mentioned earlier, which is a joint grant with the Garnet Valley School District. We have an Octorara Trail, the design completion to be finalized in this next year. State Farm and Baltimore Pike, there are pedestrian upgrades through an ARLI grant that we have, and we have a DCNR grant for First State Trail Connector feasibility study, which is also noted. On the sewer side, so that I can break out for folks to help them better understand what are those projects that are listed in there, and I actually have them in parens on the full spreadsheet, but I think this is easier to see and break out so folks get a good understanding of when some of these neighborhoods are planned to get sewers. In 2021, the Smith Bridge Estates project is already underway. That project is in part with a developer who's in there now doing work, and the township will assume their portion of that phased project in 2021. Penn's Grant 1 and 2, that's a sewer project that's already had all its approvals, just like Smith Bridge, and that work should be finalized in 2021. Concord Road North is a portion that we have the planning underway. We will be finalizing that planning, reaching out to residents. I will note to any residents who are looking at these lists, if you haven't been reached out to, you will. It's just we are in that phase of planning. We've also had hiccups as a result of COVID, where we normally have in-person meetings, but we will be discussing with any residents that are affected by any of the new sewer infrastructure, having those discussions. And actually, many of them have reached out to us requesting such sewer infrastructure. So Beaver Valley Extension's on here, Cambridge Downs, Clayton Park, Smithbridge, Conchester will be looking at some engineering to get started. That's why that number is lower in 2021 and moving forward. These processes take a very long time for new sewer infrastructure. I know that Dominic or John Gillespie or Dana, they can opine a little further, but they take a very long time. There's a long paper process resulting from that requires DEP approvals. And just some further discussion points that I'll wrap up with. There's discussion about fire hydrant tax. I think council, we anticipate that there's a fund balance in that account for discussion. Financial items that are unknown. We have some insurance renewals that are still out there that we're waiting to get in. 2021 real estate assessment, we still don't have the final numbers post the hearings, which I mentioned earlier. We have various bids right now that are on the street and some contract renewal costs that we hope to have prior to December's meeting. Additionally, as I've noted in previous meetings publicly, 2021 COVID impacts. There are knowns that we have, for example, the Liquid Fuels Fund. We received notice from the state that we would be down 10% this year, and they've given us numbers that reflect that. Our budget actually reflects those numbers, and we'll be making up for some of that in our capital reserve fund to make sure that we can have a robust road program again this year, and match what we did last year with $750,000. So, but that's a known factor. I don't have known factors for some of the other delays that we've had, especially on the capital side, whether it from production, surplus to construction. So that's kind of a wait and see. And then additionally, as part of our fund balance policies that we've updated, created, balance transfers, operating account balances. In December, usually with the passing of the budget, we provide council members with suggested transfers. We actually don't believe this year we may have one from the general fund, the township side, but we do believe we will have a suggestion on the sewer side. So just keep that in mind. And other than that, it's my last slide, and any questions I'm happy to entertain. I have Hank Deal, our treasurer, and Terry Grant, our assistant manager, who also oversees sewer.
Amanda, I just have a couple. On that one slide before this. Mm-hmm. Balance transfer operating account balances. Mm-hmm. We have done that for, I just want the record to reflect, we've done that now for probably, the last 3 years?
Correct.
So any excess money that is left over at the end of the year, we've been devoting, and I think with Mr. Crossan's help and Mr. Gillespie's help, to Park and Rec or to open space or other capital projects. So
correct. We've had well over $7 million.
Formal policy in effect regarding fund balance transfer.
Correct.
Okay. And then the second thing, and I know you and I had a little discussion this afternoon, and the millage rate is set at 0.530 mils, but that's based on the number the county has given us most recently. But if I'm understanding you, that could change. Is that the gospel number, or is there going to be another number that'll be? There will be another
number that comes out post the second round of hearings.
Okay, and when do we anticipate that?
We're not sure. They're telling us it will be, normally we get these in early November to mid-November, which is tough anyway on the budget side of the world. But now they're telling us that it will be end of December, potentially November or December 1st.
Okay, well, just for board's consideration, we don't need to act on it tonight. Our meeting of, the first meeting in December is scheduled for December 1st, which is the first Tuesday of the month. And if we don't have that number by then, we might think about moving that to the 8th, because that way we'll be basing that 0.53 mils on the most current number or most recent number from the county. So we're sort of, for everybody's information, we're sort of in a little gray area there. We have a number from them, but now they're calling us and telling us that might not be your final number. All that means is the millage rate might have to be adjusted so we bring the same amount of money in. And I don't think if waiting another week will give us that right number, as opposed to having to revise the millage rate later, it might behoove us to hold the December meeting off a week. But we can talk about that and advertise accordingly.
Absolutely.
When we get to that point. They were the only questions I had. Go ahead, John, you got it?
Temple Road, right? Yeah, just one comment. I'd like to see some money put aside for a temporary, an actuated pedestrian crossing and flasher on Temple Road. We have two trails that come together, or there's a crossing on Temple Road. Just this past weekend, having been there, it was not very safe for people to be walking across Temple Road. It's at an odd location, almost at a high point of the road. And checking with Nate, our engineer, he said we could do something there for about $40,000. So I guess capital planning is everything over $100,000. So maybe we could find a way to fit this in with one of our expenditures for about $40,000. I'm really concerned about the safety of the public as they cross over Temple Road.
We'll get to questions from the public in a minute. Okay, you got that, Amanda?
Yep, I have that, and that's absolutely doable.
I think, John, as you know, we put that in when we started that trail. Unfortunately, it's getting a lot of use. So I think we need a safety enhancement there, and
yes,
now it would be the time to do it.
Absolutely.
Anyone else from council have any questions or comments or observations?
On the liquid fuel funds, the amount that you said communicated by the state, has the county also communicated that they will be reducing the amount that comes?
No, they have not.
And then the second question I have is on the financial items unknown. The insurance and various contract costs. Those are, when do you expect to have more information on those open-ended?
Sure, that's a great question. We actually anticipate property, the insurance side of it. We built numbers in and percentages with assumptions. So it's not that there's nothing budgeted. And we had several projects that are currently in the bidding process that we've earmarked monies for as well. We anticipate having those numbers, I think, on the project side. Most of them should be in before December, so by the end of November. And the insurance always comes in late in the new year. So we always put an assumption. I think this year you had 5%, if I'm not incorrect, on that as an assumption.
Thank you.
Anyone else? John, you have any? John Crossan, do you have any comments or questions? No? Okay, now we would ask anyone from the public if you would come up to the microphone, and we would need your name and address, please. We might want to do a mic check when you get up here because this is all new stuff. Might need to pull it a little closer to you. Before you start.
On the side.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go. Okay.
Hi, I'm Beatrice, driven to Fort, and I am at 8 Huntmead Lane.
8 Huntmead Lane, and
Yes.
your name again, please? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Beatrice. It's driven to Fort driven. I have two different names. DRIBAN DUFORT DRIBAN. I had just, can I go?
Sure.
Two questions. The one thing that you mentioned about the Temple Road crossing, that how unsafe it was, I've used it, and I thought instead of spending $40,000, why don't you put a stop sign? It's not a major road. It would be probably less expensive, than doing something more complicated. You could put just like a stop, like you have had up the street in different location. That seems so simple. The second question I have is regarding the transfer of funds. I see that you have a lot of money budgeted for open space, different projects. But I'm here, what about the library? Why can't we just commit more money to the library? I think educating children and the public is just as important as the money spent in, getting healthy, the trail, open space. I feel we need to find a better balance. And maybe we should ask all the community if they would be either willing to have more money being committed to the library.
We are by far the largest single contributor to the Rachel Cole Library. We contribute to the Rachel Cole Library somewhere in excess of $190,000
I understand,
per year.
and I appreciate, because I help the library and I've been helping raise money for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
But I do feel they need more money.
I agree with you, but I just so I can, and I've been an advocate for the library. I contribute to them personally also.
Sure.
I think it's a great thing. But I think, though, if you look at the next highest contributor, it's about...
And I see that, and I appreciate that.
But what I guess I'm getting at is that, and I've had this discussion with other library board members, that I think if the other townships were paying their same per capita as we are, you would have more money. Concord Township has helped the library in any way they can, even little incremental things such as moving the sign and rebuilding it. But I think it's something maybe we could take under advisement to see if we were.
I think what I'm
to
saying.
raise the millage, but we could consider that for a future budget.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you do. I just feel they're struggling, and when I help and I volunteer, and so much money is being spent to raise a little bit of money that doesn't make a difference, I appreciate what the township does. Yeah. There's other township involved, but I'm here. I live in Concord Township, and I'm going to advocate for the library in my township, right. And that's why I'm here.
Well, as I said, though, as living out here for the 30 years I've been here, I've been actively involved with the library. I have been a firm supporter of the library, and I think in past years, not when this board was here, but when we were in other buildings, there was actually consideration of lowering that millage, and I was for an advocate of not lowering it at all.
Thank you.
Perhaps if there's some special projects that come up during the year for the library needs, we might be able to help participate with that. We've done that in the past.
I know you do, and I appreciate it. I don't mean to say you do not.
No, it's a good
I just
point,
wanted to say, when I look at the money being dedicated in trails, we can find another 50,000 somewhere.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Dave Cleary, 72 Schoolhouse Lane. Couple questions. Budget item number 163 through 168. The solicitor fees seem to be underrunning in the litigation and other services, but running pretty high for just the generic fees. If I look at the 2018 actuals, I know for a fact that the litigation expense was more than $300, because when you took me to court over my right to know request, your filing fee was $300. That's a public record in the court. And if it was ongoing litigation, I'm suspecting the solicitor must have billed a couple $1,000s to protect Concord from me doing a public records request. How can that be $268? And are we not capturing the funds spent under what's called litigation expense appropriately? How does the citizen know how that money is actually being allocated around?
Hi, Mr. Cleary.
Yes,
That
that particular item that you're addressing wouldn't be something we considered litigation. He didn't have to litigate with the state for your right to know law request. That was some letters back and forth for an appeal that you had. But litigation in this accounting world is more, if you think about like a Pulte or a Concord Ventures or things that he's going before the judge to do certain things on.
He didn't go before a judge?
I think what she's trying to say is that expense was probably captured in one of the other items,
Yes,
and I guess
that's
we could figure
pretty
out
much.
which one it is and get back to you on it.
Yeah, what that generally happens when I ask these questions, and you say you'll get back to me, is you don't get back to me, I follow up an email, you don't get back to me, I follow up with a right to know.
Amanda, could you?
You don't get back to me, we end up in court. Is this no kidding? You're actually going to treat me like a credible citizen and actually get back to me this time?
Well,
Ms. Marone?
well,
Wait a minute, Amanda, we're asking the question of
who's the
Amanda.
question
Could you,
to?
this
Who-
fee that he's
who
talking
is-
about. wait a
I don't
minute,
want to
Dave,
play the game, Miss.
Dave, we're trying to get you an answer to your question.
Sure. I would say if you would like to make sure, and you have it noted, if you want to submit, you've done them in the past, a right to know law request, give me the year and when, and I can pull any financial record from that time.
There you go.
Does that help? And then it's actually paper
It
trail.
Because we've
If you
been
want to
there
tell
and
me the dates, just specifically, it was this time, and
I will
what were the
do
costs?
that, and we'll see what the result is. I would like that if I come into the office and I say you didn't show me what I asked for, that you're courteous and cordial to me and make an effort to find it. And that's been a problem in the past, Mr. Rock, and it's documented by you.
I will agree to disagree on cordialities when you come into the office.
And I will agree to disagree on your ability to find records when I ask for them.
All right, do you have any other questions on
Yes,
the
sir.
budget?
Yes, sir.
Sure, here,
I'm sorry to rush you, Mr. Pledgey.
No, I'm just asking if you have any other questions. Let's go on to the next question.
You do that every time I come up here, sir. We had this
Well-
discussion 2 meetings back that I'd like you to stop doing that because you don't do that to every citizen. You particularly do it to me every time I come up in this forum. And I feel that you're disrespecting me and trying to marginalize my questions or concerns. I will move forward to my questions about the spending on military stuff as it is Veterans Day tomorrow. Items 457, civil and military celebrations. Please help me understand what military celebration in Concord Township the township spends $1 on. They have nothing to do with the Memorial Day parade, and it's all volunteer citizens that do the Veterans Day activities. There is no cost to Concord Township. What is the military?
Sure. Can I just point out, so we are following a chart of accounts set by the state of Pennsylvania. So when you see a title like that, that's for those for various celebrations, and that's the bucket that we get. So when you see that code of 457, which is civil celebrations, that's Park and Recreations activities, and Concord Community Day are in there. So there's also the movie night, I believe, sits in there, and I'm looking over at my treasurer. But that's what those amounts are listed as.
There is nothing spent on any of the military celebrations.
That's handled by that separate group for us, so we don't have any military celebrations.
You coordinate with the group for Veterans Day, but not the Memorial Day groups, correct?
No, actually, we don't. You're correct. We do not coordinate with the VA for the May celebration or the Heroes Memorial. We coordinate with them for that celebration, but we don't put out any money for that other than the maintenance that we do for that property.
Okay. Understood. So it's an unfortunate label because the township doesn't actually do any kind of military appreciation efforts. Understood. On the park side, and I asked this question a couple months ago, and oh, by the way, I haven't heard anything on it. Budgeting $96,000 in 2020, budgeting $98,000 in 2021. This is line item 454. Spend last year was $20,000. The actual, the two previous years, there was 21,490.
I mean, Dave, could you, what page are you on? We're having a, I'm
Yeah, which
having
line
a hard
item?
time,
Page 5 of 23.
page 5?
There's two sets of line items. You can go with 329 or 454. Sorry for the confusion. Yeah, your nomenclature uses two. I thought I picked out. The first column appears to be the Excel line item number.
Yes.
And the actual designation from whatever group you get that from, Ms. Serac, is, I believe, the second one.
So you're talking about parks where it says salaries, recreation park, playground,
Yeah,
those two
it's-
lines?
Your
Okay.
actual spend is about a fifth of each of the last years, and you budget in there. It appears like you're putting extra money in there and then doing the quiet transfer of money at the end of the year to other things.
Actually, no, I'll stop you right there. So when you see that for park salaries, we had a planned hire for a director of Parks and Recreation this year, and due to COVID, we held off on hiring that position and are looking to fulfill that next year. So that's why there is a disparity within those numbers.
What do we need a Parks and Recreation director for? We don't have, where I grew up, that Parks and Recreation ran summer sports, tennis courts, baseball fields, did a lot of that stuff that there is no need for any of. That's what Parks and Recreation does.
So that's a decision with council as to whether or not there is a need. We've identified a need in the township to have somebody who can helm that. And we have a part-time person right now that handles some of these special events. However, we do have facilities and things of that nature that's been identified for hiring.
So it's going to become a full-time role,
Correct.
and it's going to be advertised?
Correct.
Not yet.
I couldn't hear you.
Not yet. It'll,
Oh, not yet. It was deferred this year.
okay. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I guess the protocol would be to close this hearing.
Sure, absolutely. And as normal, from this hearing, oh, you have public comments, correct?
Oh,
You
yeah,
do
we
have
got
one
one
that came,
public
thanks,
comment,
John.
Mr. Crossan, if you would kindly read it.
Sure. Thank you, President Pileggi. We had one set of written comments that were submitted by Joshua Twersky, 1 Cedar Grove Drive, Concord Township. I'll read these. There are no questions. They are just to be read into the record. The township audited financial statements provide part of the basis of financial data used in the 2021 budget. Township auditors, who have been the same for over a decade straight, are appointed by the Township Council via a no-bid contract. The same council members' election campaigns are funded by the Concord Township Republican Party. Township auditors consistently give political contributions to the Township Republican Party. The influence scheme destroys the necessary independence of the auditors, makes it impossible for an opinion to be given on the financial statements, and therefore makes the basis for the budget more than suspect. Concord Township had a reported surplus in excess of $500,000 for the year ended 2020. And for well over a decade now, the township has run huge surpluses every year. Some years surpluses have been well in excess of $1 million. Over the last decade, the township has accrued over $12 million in surpluses, all while its total general fund annual expenditures have only been around $4 million. This ratio of annual expenditures to reserves cannot be found anywhere in Delaware County and possibly anywhere in the Commonwealth. The Township Council, under the over 20-year consecutive leadership of Council President Dominic Pileggi, tries to pull the wool over the eyes of the residents of the township by espousing its no real estate tax increases, but the data proves that while that has been happening in a crooked bargain that has resulted in the overcollection of millions and millions of dollars of real estate taxes from the good people of Concord Township. The taxpayers have been stolen from by being overtaxed by a crooked council. It's been over 2 years since the 5-year capital budget plans have been in place. While long-range capital budgets can be a good management tool, with the unfathomable surpluses the township has been running, it's hard to believe the primary purpose of the creation of these plans wasn't much more than an accounting gimmick to try and hide the overcollection of taxes from the township residents. The proof of this scheme is evident in the fact that when not including grant monies, the actual capital expenditures for the last 2 years was far, far less than the 5-year capital budgets planned. The fact is that council has overcollected so much in taxes that it is nearly impossible to spend it all. Disgraceful.
Entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So move. I make a motion that we close the preliminary budget hearing.
A
And-
second.
Second.
Okay.
And if I could just point out to folks, so any of those numbers that we get in advance of that will get cleaned up. We'll get this ready for final, and I'll make sure that it's on the website
Okay.
and ready for a meeting. And if we have to advertise for a change in meeting date, we will do so.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for coming out this